My name is Jeff Bischoff. I'm a research director at Zimmer Biomet. Zimmer Biomet is a musculoskeletal company that traditionally has made joint reconstruction devices, artificial hips and knees and other joints for many, many years. And nowadays, we continue to focus on implants, but also other aspects of the patient journey. So planning, rehabilitation, patient tracking, remote monitoring, a lot of other technologies that we can bring into musculoskeletal solutions. My team is focused on the biomechanics to support these solutions. We are looking at physical testing of new concepts, new designs. We are looking at computational simulation, also of those same designs to address all sorts of performance requirements or potential safety concerns. So we're looking at fatigue performance of components. We're looking at joint kinetics and kinematics. We're addressing potential manufacturing issues with the production of these implants, and many, many other areas where we can bring in modeling and simulation. We've been using modeling and simulation for many years, really throughout the total product life cycle. So, early on, we would use it for supporting concept development, where we would receive a design that has been developed for good reason, and then we use modeling and simulation to evaluate that design. The interesting thing is, as the technologies have improved, and our internal appetite for using modeling and simulation has increased as well, we're able to use modeling and simulation now really to define the design space for interesting concepts. So rather than receiving designs and evaluating them, we're even bringing modeling and simulation earlier to help define the parameters in which we can safely design. And then we design, and then the assessment really becomes an afterthought, because we know that if we're in this envelope, it's going to perform well. So that's an interesting area where we've used modeling and simulation. I would say also for many years we've used modeling and simulation, primarily finite element analysis, to support verification of devices. So by verification, we mean, are they going to be strong enough? Are they going to perform well enough? These sorts of basic questions. And so we use modeling and simulation to support those questions. We use physical testing to support those questions, and various other things. And over the past number of years, the impact of modeling and simulation to address those basic questions has increased to the point where nowadays, for regulatory submissions really across the globe, there's a pretty significant footprint of model and simulation in those regulatory submissions to support the review and clearance of our devices. And then one other area that we're using model and simulation is it's great to design the implants. It's great to show that they're going to work and support the regulatory submissions. But now, once they're available to surgeons, to patients, a lot of the uses that we have from model and simulation really draw out some of the key features of the devices themselves. And so we're able to use model and simulation to help the commercialization effort itself. If we made an improvement in some area relative to a device that maybe we had 10 years ago, or relative to a device that maybe another company has on the market, we're able to use model and simulation to really accentuate some of the benefits that we believe we have engineered into the technologies. We obviously are in a regulated industry, and anything we do to support the development of a device or the verification or validation of a device, whatever we do, we're always thinking about, can we use these same techniques to directly support the conversations we're going to have with the regulatory agencies. And we've been able to do that. So again, the footprint of model and simulation in these discussions, it's been there for quite a while, but it continues to grow over time. And what I have learned in my experience with regulatory authorities, and this is both internal regulatory authorities, the regulatory folks at my company who are in charge of putting together the submissions, as well as the regulatory authorities outside for whatever country who are governing the clearance of the device in their country. What I have learned is that if we as technical people believe in the quality of the work, and if we have properly challenged ourselves to define and defend the validity of the approach. If we can do that as technical folks, generally speaking, we can have those same conversations successfully with regulatory authorities. And it may not be the same level of technical detail because they are looking at other aspects of it. But that's the bar I think that is most effective. And again, if we're able to do that, if we're asking ourselves the tough questions as we're developing the models and as we're deploying the models, if we ask those tough questions and we can answer them with evidence, then generally speaking, we can have successful conversations with the regulatory authorities as well. I think it's going to continue to grow. So everyone has known, I think, for many years that the promise of modeling and simulation is a cheaper way to evaluate stuff, whatever that stuff is. And cheap is great. Cheap matters. But the other thing that we can really get with modeling and simulation is an unprecedented level of insight into how our devices are actually performing, right? That there are no other methodologies that enable us to understand how this particular device that may have this aspect of tolerancing may be on this end of the spectrum in terms of material properties, in terms of strength, how this particular device will perform in this particular patient with these gait characteristics, these aspects of life that they want to do. What other way can we bring those together? Model and simulation is the way to do it. So I think as we continue to try and bring those together, as we continue to try and drive to patient-specific solutions, where that solution is not just the device, but it's all aspects of the process of the prehab, the surgery, the device selection, the rehab, that whole process. As we continue to try and make that more and more patient-specific, customized to this particular patient, model and simulation really is the only way to do that with confidence. So I think that's the upside for model and simulation. We can get answers for all these sorts of things with the level of hardware and software that we have nowadays. It's no longer a question of whether we can get answers. We can get answers. We can come up with a patient-specific model, a patient-specific plan. We can do those sorts of things. To achieve that in practice, right, then we just need to make sure that the answers are correct. So that's going to continue to be, I think, the appropriate limiting factor to deployment of model and simulation in these spaces. If we can do these things well, if we can demonstrate that we can do them well, then we have all sorts of things that we can do. And we have to be cognizant that there are some things that we can model well. We understand the physics well enough, and we can demonstrate that. There's some other areas, some contemporary failure modes, where the level of the computational modeling isn't as mature. And there we still need to put in, I think, more technical work to bring it up to regulatory grade, if you will. For a new company, I think you should do it, but you should do it well. There are various experiences that I've seen directly, that I've talked about other people where you dabble with some modeling and simulation. You think it's going to be quote unquote easy. It's going to give you a quick answer, and you do it. And those may not be the best answers. And if you don't look at this with the appropriate level of detail and really challenge yourself to do it well the first time, then you may end up having a bad experience that first time. You may come up with a result that isn't right, that leads you down the path of designing something or redesigning something you didn't have to redesign, right? That's a bad outcome. It may lead you down the path of using simulation within a regulatory submission, and the regulatory authorities don't accept it because it's not regulatory grade. It's not to the level that they want. It's not written the way they want to see it. And that can set the company back for 5 years or more or less from using it again because of that first experience. So my advice would be, look at it. It is a very powerful tool. You can learn things that you cannot learn through other means, but make sure that you give it the proper attention, and do it right. I think certainly one of the challenges, which is very relevant to the use of modeling and simulation, is there really is increasing expectations on gathering clinical evidence, even more so in past years. Clinical evidence is important, right? But when we are trying to come up with solutions for uh, a very diverse, global patient data set, um, we have a lot of outliers that we're trying to take care of. There are a lot of patients that, due to anatomical specificities or curiosities about their activities or what have you, that they're sort of an extreme, and it's really hard or potentially even impossible to get good, compelling clinical data on those extremes. The smallest patients, the most active patients. If you think about now implants, the smallest implants or the largest implants, or these combinations that are important for addressing the global population, but necessarily are on the tails of the distribution. How do we get sufficient clinical evidence to support those sorts of patients, of those sorts of challenges? And I think that's a real problem, and that's an area where modeling and simulation can really help out. I think another challenge is the cost to entry is continues to grow, right? With the expectations on acquiring clinical evidence, either in advance of a submission or for monitoring. That takes a lot more investment to make, really compelling, innovative new products, and that the barrier may limit innovation unintentionally, but that can be a consequence. So I think one of the other opportunities is, can we use modeling and simulation to enable us to still chase after those truly innovative technologies while still having a measured approach to the clinical evidence that may be needed to support the clinical use of those technologies.